Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo, with your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you very, very much, as always, for locking in, whether you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, or whether you're checking us out on the video side via YouTube. Can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate each and every single one of you. You know, I've been saying this a little bit here and there on the show recently. I kind of want to reiterate this again. The audience here, both on the video and the audio side, is growing exponentially, and it's amazing to see. It really is. Makes me want to work even harder to bring good content to you, to do everything I can to make this show all that it could possibly be. And again, that's because of all of you. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. Coming up in like just a minute or two, I'm going to play a conversation that I taped with Tone Pucks about Lindy Ruff and the Buffalo Sabres. Actually taped this segment immediately after we wrapped up our live show taping that we did live on the YouTube side on Wednesday night. And then we dropped that for the podcast audio yesterday. Plan on having a fairly long segment on yesterday's show, kind of to highlight Lindy Ruff and some Sabres talk, especially since it's like even barely been addressed on the show since Lindy Ruff got hired. I mean, this is one of the biggest Buffalo Sabres stories to come out in years. And to think that Lindy Ruff would ever come back and coach the Sabres again felt far-fetched for a long time, but it's not anymore. Now it's a reality. We haven't addressed it on this show really much at all. I mean, to be fair, it did happen just as we were getting ready here for the NFL draft. Things were getting real close, and Bill stuff is always going to take precedent on this show. Trust me when I tell you, man, I already heard it plenty from Tone Pucks, both off air and on air last night. I bumped him from last Wednesday's show to have a solo final Buffalo Bills mock draft. And I promise you, I heard it from him plenty. But anyway, the Sabres, Lindy Ruff talk, that was the plan for like the last third or so of yesterday's show. But, you know, we ended up pretty far in the weeds as to the state of this current 2024 Buffalo Bills roster post-draft. Now that the draft's over, free agency for the most part is over. Going to be a few additions probably come June 1st, maybe before that. But for the most part, what you see is what you're going to get with this year's Buffalo Bills. Which, by the way, in terms of yesterday's conversation, if you haven't listened to or watched yesterday's episode, I really highly suggest going back and doing that. It was a strong chat. It was a fun chat, a good chat. But at any rate, at some point yesterday during the show, the clock went off in my head, and I realized that talking about Lindy Ruff yesterday was going to just amount to basically a few like throwaway minutes at the end of a very Bill-centric episode. So rather than just do that and chuck it in at the end, I convinced Tone to stick around after the show was over, and he was in studio here with me. And right after yesterday's show ended, we cranked out a nice half hour or so chat about Lindy Ruff and kind of like the state of this Sabres roster right now. And I think Tone had a lot of interesting things to say, from Ruff being hired to it being, in his estimation anyway, maybe the most exciting thing to happen to this franchise in at least a decade. Puck had some really strong takes on what his continued desire at this point to see Jeff Skinner become a former Buffalo Sabre before this summer's over, whether that's getting traded, whether that's getting bought out. So we talk about that, a pretty good roster chat, including a few interesting takes I thought that Tone had about the pipeline. So real good stuff. I'm going to play that for you right now, actually. And then we're going to come back and I'll wrap this up and we'll talk about a few fun things that I already got on tap for a few shows for next week. So anyway, that'll be at the end. But right now, here it is. My chat that I taped, Buffalo Sabres, Lindy Ruff chat with my guy, Tone Pucks. All right, Don Granato out. Buffalo Sabres head coach, Lindy Ruff in. Not new news, but we have not had a chance to talk about this yet. You criticized me on yesterday's show, rightfully so, because I kind of bumped you for my own personal mock draft at the end, which, by the way, I had Xavier Leggett going to the Bills in the first round. Real close. The Bills were on the clock, 32. Didn't take him. But anyway, Lindy Ruff is big news here in Buffalo, and I kind of wanted to save it where we could have some time to maybe let it marinate a little bit instead of talking about it as a throwaway part of an hour and 15-minute episode. Haven't had a chance to talk to you since Granato got fired, let alone the hiring of Lindy Ruff. What were your initial thoughts, impressions? Because it came quick from Granato getting fired to Kevin Adams speaking to Lindy Ruff being introduced as the next head coach. It all came together relatively quick. See it coming a mile away?
No, I mean, people that said following the Adams press conference that, you know, that they could see it coming a mile away. I'll give them credit for saying, you know, that they're telling the truth about it, you know. But to say that you came out of that feeling like, you know, what, 75, 80% that it would be Lindy, I think that would be a little high, even for people that use the terminology that they saw it coming. I think you could say that you saw it coming if you came out of that Adams presser at maybe like 25 to 35%. I think you could still get away with saying that, that you put the pieces together with that, but it was no surprise. But the fact that it was no surprise should not cloud the fact that it is massive. It's massive. All right. There was no star in the NHL that they were going to add this offseason that is a greater star, not only here, but abroad, but certainly here, than Lindy Ruff. And I'll stop short of saying that the naysayers, all right, are necessarily thieves of joy. Okay, there are people out there that are very dialed in to hockey and coaches that have worked well in modern systems and things like that. Coaches that may still be more on the upswing than Lindy may be, and they wanted those guys, Craig Berube's and others. Brendan Moore always being a pipe dream. Those people, I think, were just destined to be disappointed. But man, I've got one overriding theme on this hire, and that is the fact that this team has not been remotely fun, all right, for almost the entirety of their drought. Okay, maybe if you liked the tank, if you liked cheering against them for the sake of grabbing one of those two players, I could dig it. All right, that counts as fun. If you had fun with that, that's cool. But that doesn't, to me, that doesn't trump this. Okay, this is the funnest thing they've done in the past 10 years. And right now, that is all my bar is with this hockey team. Would you please just make me enjoy your existence for a season or two? And hey, look, fine, man. Maybe my bar was too low, but I'll tell you, it's not going to stop there, guys. The bar will continue to be as low as you could ever imagine it being for a coach's success in his tenure a second time around. Lindy, just break the drought. All right. Like 27 out of 32 teams get in. All right. Just get us there, man. And we will be ecstatic. If this fails, I'd be shocked. And the reason is because the bar is so wonderfully low to achieve happiness with this franchise once again.
Breaking the drought would almost be like getting to the Eastern Conference Finals for other teams in terms of what the bar is.
Yes.
All right, so depending on, I guess, who you believe or who you listen to, Kevin Adams has his press conference. One thing that seemed certain right away is that he was pretty locked in on who it was going to be. And then again, Lindy Ruff is hired 6 days later. I did see an NHL insider, I think it was Andy Strickland, said that Craig Berube was talked to initially and didn't really have interest. And from there, they quickly pivoted to Lindy. I don't know, dude. I would say that dude's lying about Berube. Maybe they tried to gauge his interest a little bit, but I kind of feel like Granato knew on the plane flying back from Tampa that not only was Granato going to get fired, but that it was going to be Lindy Ruff as a head coach. I played a clip on Twitter of our show from a couple weeks ago before I started bumping you for mock drafts, where you talked about Lindy Ruff. Didn't it feel at the time, to a certain extent, at least kind of like a novice, like almost like a novelty idea, a little fun, nostalgic thing? And now I'm like, well, it's real, obviously, but you talked about it, the excitement, and joked about your mini season tickets that you have, and you might at least return the phone call now from the ticket rep.
Absolutely, man.
How much do you think the decision to bring back Lindy Ruff has to do with marketing? Because Buffalo back in the day, especially with the Bills, they were known for this shit. Signing Terrell Owens for a year when they had no chance of winning. Bringing Marv Levy back pretty much as the mouthpiece GM. Like, how much do you think off the ice and marketing has to do with this, in addition to what they expect Lindy Ruff to be as a head coach?
27 to 32% of the
That's
of
real
the
specific. That's real specific.
Look, I mean, you could say that it played a role, and then the follow-up is how big of a role. All right, I'm going to just put it out there. I goof around with, percentages like that to truly kind of offer my thought on how much of a factor it was. And I would say that it was a piece of the pie, maybe about a third of it.
Nostalgic factor aside, marketing factor aside, low bar, continuing to have a low bar aside, is it the right pick as head coach? Because, I mean, it seems to me like this is a young team that needs a kick in the ass, which, by the way, I don't think we talked about this. In fact, I know we didn't. Were you a little bit disturbed on locker clean-out days because there was multiple days? It just felt like player after player after player, indirectly to some extent, was kind of throwing Granato under the bus. We need leadership. We need more accountability. We need this. We need that. I mean, young team or not, these fucking grown-ass men, and they're just preaching about not having accountability. It felt to me, my personal opinion was like, Don Granato was getting thrown under the bus a little bit by his own players after he got fired. It's like, how about a little more self-accountability and not needing a coach to babysit you? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I have an opinion on that, and it's like a little, I don't want to call it, conspiratorial by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that during the course of the 48 hours where they found out that their head coach was let go, their GM spoke publicly, and then I believe their GM may have conducted some meetings with them, some exit meetings with them.
Mm-hmm.
They sounded an awful lot like their GM to me. Like that was, that was his talking point, the day that they fired him. And I think it may have continued into some exit meetings and a bunch of, goofy, somewhat, novice, young guys who just haven't figured it out yet, just piggybacked what their GM was saying. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like a bunch of, super annoying. Like I'm starting to see my baseball players right now. Like I understand 14 and 24 is a little bit of a difference, but it's really the dynamic isn't that, that different, man. Like none of these guys really kind of ever speak out and have anything to say. That's really the least bit interesting. And I think they just piggybacked their GM comments and ran with it.
It just felt that way all year, though.
Hollow.
Like they were just saying the same tired bullshit. Couple interesting things from my conversation with Matthew Fairburn after the firing. But before that, let me ask you this, because when I talked to Matt, Lindy Ruff was not hired as the head coach. End of the day, again, nostalgic. Is he the right guy? Is he the guy that's going to come into that locker room and crack some asses and get these young players to be more accountable? Is he going to get them to play better two-way hockey? Is he the right coach for the job? If the bar's low and the goal is to at least get in the playoffs, because he's only got a 2-year contract with the Sabres right now, is he the right coach to do it?
Yeah, man, he checks. I don't know how many boxes there are for fans. I'm sure, Adams had his as well. He checks a lot of those boxes. Boxes. So sure, yes, why not?
Yeah. Matt said, talking about the players, that despite him having kind of a lousy season, he looks at Dylan Cousins and sees him as a guy who could be the captain and the leader of this hockey team. It kind of resonated with me a little bit. I was a little bit surprised
a lot of people
to hear that. What do you think?
I mean, a lot of people look at Ruff and Cousins as a relationship, that's very important to the success of this team. Cousins had a huge down year, man. All right. How he's going to be used, who his line mates are going to be, what kind of, two-way game are going to be his expectations. It's the roster decisions will tell us quite a bit there. I tend to think that the third line center that they get is one that can, compete with Cousins for ice time and ultimately offensive production better than any third line center that they had this year. Incorrect, because they actually had the very third line center that they're looking for at one point this year. But it's probably a different conversation, but it should be maddening to some. All right.
Talking about Casey Middleton,
to look and see the need that exists right now and know that you had it and what you got in return. All right. Looks to be a little bit of very uneven hockey player. But back to the Cousins point, but they need someone to take a little bit of the pressure off Dylan Cousins if he's not scoring.
Sure.
Ruff's influence over Cousins will be significant. Where Lindy Ruff can take Dylan Cousins' career and how close to his ceiling Lindy Ruff can get him.
Mike Pekka vibes with him at all?
Will be significant. I don't know. Some have thought that. Like people have talked about Cousins in that role, and then, pretty smart Sabre Twitter guys will come out and be like, man, he doesn't play good defense. You know what I mean? Like, you get some of that sometimes. Cousins is very confusing. I'll tell you exactly what Cousins was. Cousins was a premature contract. Okay? Cousins was a very premature contract, because if it's not Cousins who gets that money, then maybe it should have been Middlestat, and you're looking for the Dylan Cousins replacement with a Dylan Cousins, chip somewhere along the way. Cousins is so important because of the investment. We can't walk away from Dylan Cousins, so we've got to hope that Lindy Ruff can push the right buttons.
Our dream, collaborative dream of Jeff Skinner getting bought out. I don't think it's dead now. It might be on life support, but
it's not on life support. It's not dead.
Nobody.
Somebody give me a line.
Somebody give me
a line. Somebody give me a betting line on Jeff Skinner not being with this team on opening night next year.
Because of a buyout or because of a trade?
Who's going to
trade? Who's going to trade for him? You know what you'd have to include?
Yeah, someone
to get someone to take. I think he's
someone
got 3
who's got
years left at $9 million.
Sean LeCourrier or the guy from the Flyers who's from here on like a 7-year, $7 million. Is he
approaching a contract that might even be worse than what Okposo's was? Because Kyle Okposo, as grossly overpaid as he was, at least he had a role as a decent defensive fourth line forward. Where
some people
if Jeff Skinner ain't going to be on a top 2 line and he's not scoring 25 to 30 goals, what use does he have? Isn't he basically Victor Olofsson if he's not going to be putting 25 pucks in the net?
Yeah, man.
No, I feel like they're stuck with that though for another year. That's what the experts say. And
it's not about what they would lose financially. It's not about that. I know that would be significant, but unless you're willing to just let him rot, all right, on the fourth line in the press box, he's taking a valuable roster spot and line, spot away from someone that they say they want to be different. You know what I mean? You can't say we need a different identity in our back six and then roll Jeff Skinner out there. You either roll Jeff Skinner with Dylan Cousins on line 2, or you've got no use for the player.
Right. What do you feel like Lindy Ruff will have a short leash with a player like Jeff Skinner? And I would think that maybe that was at least a conversation that Kevin Adams had before hiring Lindy. Not that Jeff Skinner would be the ultimate basis of him hiring him or not, but had to at least been a conversation. Like, this guy's our third liner. He don't play no defense.
He's gone. I think he's gone. I think the fact that people, all right, are pushing back on that and just not as open to it is crazy to me. It's crazy to me. I don't like to make Sabres and Bills comparisons, certainly not on the basis of, them being tied by the common owner. But, we just saw what the Bills were willing to do to walk away from someone that wasn't an organizational fit.
Right.
I have no reason to think that the Sabres wouldn't be willing to do the same. And the fears that people have on the money side, okay, I would ask them to look a little bit deeper as to, what we've been doing with our money over the past few years and who's out there to pay in the next few. There's really nobody, all right, who's going to break our bank in the next few years of Eaton Skinner's contract. All those guys are signed already. Darlene, Powers, Power. I think I may have put an S on that inadvertently. Power,
Cousins,
Tage. There's just like, you're more apt to miss out on being able to do something with Skinner's 9 on the books and him in the lineup than you are with a dead 5 or 6 in the lineup. It actually makes perfect sense. And I'm going to die on this hill, man. They're doing it.
All right. I look forward to seeing if it plays out that way. Do you think that because maybe these big contracts that maybe they might be a little bit wary, like Power and Cousins, these guys who've gotten locked up for big money, and they still may end up being great investments. We'll find out over the next couple of years. But do you think that might give Kevin Adams and Terry Pegula some hesitation when it comes to the next crop, like say, like maybe JJ Peterka or Jack Quinn over the next couple of years, maybe they give them bridge deals now instead of trying to lock up these guys for 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, I hope so. You know what I mean? Like, actually, it ended up happening with the player that they probably should have kept. You know, they got scared off by by potential Middlestat money or where he was a fit. That one's, you want to talk about
Sucks to trade
Xavier
him.
Worthy and the fear bunker. I mean, I know it's different because we're talking about a legitimate, like, Super Bowl championship when we're talking about the Bills and the Chiefs. With the Sabres, I don't even know what we're talking about.
First round exit, baby.
Yeah, but with the Sabres, you look at the Casey Middlestat trade, and boy, oh boy, does
it
hard look bad. It looks bad.
Hockey reason to get rid of him. There's no hockey reason to get rid of him. Had to be because they just couldn't. They weren't going to be able to sign him.
No, they really thought. No, I don't know that. I think they really thought Byram had superstar potential, and I think that they were already married to to Cousins and Thompson. Well, Thompson, I'm not going to include in the conversation as being premature or overcompensated. Thompson, I think when he got healthy, Thompson bounced back in a way that made me say, all right, I'm fine with Tage. Dylan Cousins did not. All right. Dylan Cousins did not do that. And now we're left looking for a third line center that was on the roster already. That's going to be tricky. That's why I think it's going to be a good one. All right. I think it's going to be it's
got to come through trade then probably.
I think it's going to be a significant investment either in what they deal or what they pay or maybe both.
Does Lindy Ruff have some stroke, do you think, in terms of getting a player from outside this organization to want to come to Buffalo because Lindy Ruff's head coach?
No. I thought you meant does Lindy have some...
And who they go after?
Yeah.
Sure. Of course he does. But does he have the pull to get somebody who may not have wanted to come here?
No one's
if Don Granato was still coach?
No one's coming here because it's Lindy Ruff.
You talked about Casey Middlestat.
Maybe an ex-Saber or something.
We're going to wind down here in a second. You talked about Casey Middlestat when he went to Colorado, and he had his comment about the practice and just, he had never sweated like that before, kind of insinuating that the Sabres don't work as hard as Colorado, which I'm sure is true. How much you think, if any, that hurt Don Granato's stock at the time and maybe after the season ultimately?
Not a ton. Not a ton. It kind of almost the same as like the players echoing the accountability sentiment. I think, it was low-hanging fruit as part of the firing, but at the end of the day, it was production based.
Sure.
They underachieved.
So to wrap this up, like summertime, you're hoping, maybe in your case, expecting Skinner to not be here. You're hoping that they could go out and get a good quality third center. Pretty much that would be what you would consider a successful offseason, because I would assume that you're anticipating between like Savoy and Kulik and maybe one or two other.
Not
Rosine.
Sure I am.
No?
Not sure I am.
There's a couple passes.
Listen,
we've
got every single one of them on their entry level right now. Like, we don't have any fears, like Levi staying in school or this guy not coming over from Sweden. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's on the farm now. We got our hands on everybody. And if the Sabres decide, which they probably kind of should have done this year, and instead, or at least the fan base's expectations were that one or two of them were going to crack the lineup. If the Sabres want them to over marinate in Rochester for a year because they knew how pissed their fan base was and how urgent things were, that they had to go out and fill those spots with proven NHLers, I can get behind that all day. All right. I don't want to hear the, so-and-so blocks, Kulich's path to playing time. You want to know who blocks Coolidge's path to playing time? Jeff Skinner. All right. Go out, get guys, that can hang with the third line. I hear Lawton a lot with a lot of smoke with Lawton and Philly and a lot of smart Sabre Twitter doesn't like his beneath the surface metrics, but I can't have it be like hope that it's Peyton Krebs. Okay?
I'm glad you mentioned him. He's going to be the last guy.
I can't hope that it's Peyton Krebs. Honestly, I think Krebs becomes part of a move. I think
that's what I'm thinking.
There's two guys that I think are the biggest potential for trades this offseason, and it's Jokiharju and
Krebs.
Yeah,
I could definitely see Krebs.
Yeah, I don't think we're ready. I think we liked Benson with Cousins and Quinn, but at the end of the day, I don't think we're ready to depend on that offense from Benson. I think they're going to sign a top 6 winger and a two-way third center, and I think that will become available. All right, by way of the buyout of Jeff Skinner and the trade of an asset, definitely an asset. And I'm not sure it's going to be a farm asset. I like it to be Krebs or Jokiharju.
I'll give you a bold prediction here, sort of bold, I think anyway. I think the Sabres are going to trade whatever they get in the draft, the lottery. I think they're going to do like 9th, 10th, 11th, something like that. I think they should trade that pick for a veteran. Maybe that is something else.
They ain't doing it.
That might be what gets them. They got enough young guys on this farm right now.
They're just not.
They need to get themselves a quality veteran, and they might have to trade a top 12 pick in the draft to be able to do this. I'm getting all these dynasty texts right now, kind of throwing me off. I was going to ask you one last question. I don't remember. Oh yeah. So we were talking here, or you were talking a couple weeks ago about, jokingly calling your ticket guy back if Lindy Ruff became the head coach. Well, now Lindy Ruff is the head coach. Are you going to call your ticket guy back? Like, has he restored some excitement for you when it comes to the Sabres, or was that just a in the heat of the moment kind of thing?
Well, no, it wasn't a heat of the moment kind of thing, but just the sequence of events being what they are, I'm waiting to see new season pricing. All right. So basically I gave up, all right, my rights to my current seats, because I asked the guy flat out. I said, all right, man, look, I said, I'm not sure what I want to do. I said, I may want to be on the move. I said, what do I miss out on by not hitting this, this first deadline that you have for payment? He goes, you're no longer guaranteed your seats. I mean, I didn't say it, but I thought to myself, I don't give a fuck about not being guaranteed these particular seats. All right. My move is, and I got a buddy that I ref hoops with, and he's like, I have great seats, and the best part about them is those are the ones that sell. Right. So he's, the 100 level and stuff like that. When I hate to use this because people get beat up for it, but when somebody's looking to go to a game, it's Toronto or something like that, like, they're not looking to sit on the 300 level goal line price break that I look for in my last. They're willing to pay basically market price, the face value, all right, for the good seat. So I think that's the direction that I'm going this year. It won't be 20. I'm not buying like 20 seats in the 100 level. I don't have it like that. But I'm thinking like, somewhere in a 6 to 10 in a prime location. And they can't tell me anything right now about that because they don't have prices for this coming year yet. So, and how about, I'll even factor this in. like, I kind of want to be able to watch Lindy all game long. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to sit, like, if I could sit in 100 behind the Sabres bench,
Yeah.
he is a superstar. Okay? He is. At least as far as this town is concerned, Lindy Ruff is a superstar. Put the camera on him all game, as far as I'm concerned. Seriously. You know, again, I started this segment by saying that I'm not going to come down on people that didn't love it as thieves of joy. But boy, I feel bad if you can't enjoy it, man, because it's the funnest thing to happen to our hockey team in 10 or 15 years.
It is. All right. You tore up your notes. Got anything else? Are we all done? You literally tore
Big
up your
game
notes.
against Orchard Park on Friday. Big game. We gotta get today's taste out of our mouth.
All right. And again, big thanks to Tone Pucks for that discussion there. Going to start to get more and more Buffalo Sabres talk, all kinds of stuff going on. The Bills, for the most part, are going to be quiet for a while. I know OTAs and stuff are coming up, and now that the draft's over, pretty much until we get to minicamp, we will really focus on trying to be a little more well-rounded here at Talking Buffalo. So again, big thank you to Tone Pucks for some much-needed Sabres chat on this show. In terms of next week, what's coming up, got a few things already on the books for next week. More specifically, 2 shows. Next Monday. So here's what I did. There's been so many people talking about the Buffalo Bills wide receiver room right now. They traded Stephon Diggs. They lose Gabe Davis. They draft Keon Coleman. They don't double dip. To this point, they haven't done anything since trading Stephon Diggs other than draft Keon Coleman. A lot of people think the Bills wide receiver room stinks right now, at least in comparison to the rest of the league. So I kind of went through this exercise. It's a pretty long process. I went through all 32 teams in the NFL, and I charted every team's wide receiver room. Well, at least 1 through 4 anyway. Some teams got 5, maybe even 6 good wide receivers. They go pretty deep. But for the purpose of this exercise, I wanted to go 1 through 4. Every team in the league made up a chart with rankings and tiers for them. And I'm going to have what is surely going to be a very lively discussion with Joe from Queens. He'll be on, and we're going to do the show for Monday. And we're going to talk about a lot of things, but primarily how the Bills compare to their peers around the league when it comes to the wide receiver room. And I'm sure, like I said, that's just going to be part of it. Joe's going to bring up some things to talk about, whether I feel like talking about them or not. That's just what my guy does. But anyway, we're going to have a fun and interesting conversation about the Bills wide receiver room compared to wide receiver rooms around the rest of the league. So we'll be doing that next Monday. Another thing that I'm already looking forward to next week is going to be Thursday night. I'm going to have one of my very favorite sports media guests. Matt Perino is going to be joining me, but instead of just doing it, StreamYard or Zoom, these remote conversations, we're actually going to be out live at Casey's Black Rock Tavern on Amherst Street in Black Rock. Tell you what, too, I've been there before. In fact, I've done a audio podcast with Matt there before a few years ago. Casey's Black Rock is one of my favorite spots for wings. And I'll tell you what, low key, Casey's Black Rock is one of the more underrated bars to eat, to drink at, to hang out. One of the more underrated spots in all of Western New York. And I really mean that. Can't wait to do that. That's going to be fun. I'm going to be hitting up a lot of different spots, I hope, anyway, over the course of the summer as the weather heats up, as it warms up. Going to be doing some Talking Buffalo shows live, not just from Imperial Pizza. I mean, don't get me wrong, Imperial is my spot. That's my home base. Always going to be doing plenty of shows from there as well. But I kind of want to start spreading the love around a little bit. Lots of great places to get good food at, have good wings, sit down on a patio or a table, and have a fun live conversation. So that starts this week again. Matt Perino live with me from Casey's Black Rock. But anyway, that's next week. Have a great weekend. I want to say one more time real quick. Thank you. Thank you very much. And keep in touch with us. I really like doing these interactive episodes. Plan on doing maybe not every week, but most weeks, at least one episode where your questions, your comments, your takes will be featured on the show. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Patrick Moran TV, or you can email us, talkingbuffalopodcast@gmail.com. By the way, I don't know why I keep saying us. This ain't no collaborative effort. It's my show. So email me, tweet at me your takes, your questions. And again, if you haven't followed, please do so. Audio side, Spotify, Apple, or on the video side, YouTube. It really helps us continue. I said it again, really helps me continue to grow the show. Speaking of me, enjoy your weekend and come Monday, make sure you wish your boy a happy birthday. Another birthday coming. Not even gonna say how old I am. Too damn old to say on this show. But my birthday is Monday, May 6th. So make sure you drop on some social media and show your boy some love. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a good weekend. Be back, brand new shows starting Monday.